Hello, hello. I am Connor Jeffers. I am a white male. I have a beard and glasses, and I'm wearing a white shirt with looks like little blue-black roses on it that I found in my closet this morning. Really excited to be here. I'm the founder and CEO of Aptitude. We are a HubSpot elite solutions partner, and we build all sorts of stuff on HubSpot. So we've been doing these workshop series. As a reminder, this is a workshop. So if you guys have things you're trying to build or questions about some of the examples we give, please throw them in the Q&A. We'll spend the back half of the webinar live answering how you can build some of the stuff on your list or different ways you could tackle and solve different types of problems. And we find that to be some of the most beneficial parts of the whole thing. Actually, jump back one for our producer here for a second, because I want to make sure that Jack gets to do an intro as well. And then I'll touch a little bit more on format. So Jack, I will hand it to you.
No, thank you, Connor. So my name is Jack. Pronouns are he, him, and I'm a white male wearing a black hoodie. I just got my haircut today, so I have a nice haircut, I think, in my opinion anyway. So
it looks great, Jack.
Thank you. Been in HubSpot for a little over 5 years. I spent 2.5 years working post-sale on the tech consulting team, and I spent the other half of that working pre-sale on our pre-sales team. So I was a solutions engineer for a good chunk of that time, and I've recently moved into a more specialist role focusing solely on the operations hub. So it's been really interesting. I'm only about 2 weeks in that role now, so it's going well.
Sweet. Well, let's talk through same format. If you've been to our other workshops, or if you're excited about CMS and other parts of HubSpot, the same sort of format will follow for future ones. So we're going to go through a couple of pre-baked examples that we have together. We'll talk through how they work, why you use them, how you might build them, and give you get your brain juices flowing on awesome ways for Operations Hub to work with Service Hub. And then what we're going to do is do Q&A and comments and talk through some of the use cases that you guys have. So do throw those in the Q&A with their questions about some of the examples that we're giving or something else you're trying to build. Our favorite parts of these workshops are people bring cool, interesting, fun problems to us, and we get to live talk about, oh, that's super cool. Here's how I think about building that, and sort of help you on the right direction. So welcome. As a starting point, we want to cover, why are we talking about this? Why is this fun and interesting and exciting? So when we think about Service and Operations Hub is my favorite hub. And the reason for that is Operations Hub lets you connect to and automate anything using HubSpot. So whether you're trying to extend some of what HubSpot's automation or custom functionality is inside of the portal itself, or you're trying to get HubSpot to work with or interact with other systems, other tools, whether web-based applications or proprietary systems, Operations Hub helps you do all of those things. So if you're using Service Hub and you want to do stuff that you're struggling to do in basic HubSpot, or you have other systems or technologies that perhaps your customer experience touches, which we find almost everybody does, Operations Hub will help you do that. So inevitably, the end goal of Operations Hub, going back to sort of our flywheel on our next slide, is being able to sort of leverage these together and ultimately connect your service to the rest of your customer experience and make it really awesome to be a customer of your company and deliver awesome custom experiences to all the different customers that you support. So let's go through a couple of examples. So one that we're going to touch on the top end, and something we run into all of the time for some of the larger organizations that we might be doing Service Hub implementations for, is complex ticket routing. So we'll have a couple of different examples of what that really means. But out of the box, right, HubSpot has sort of, you can set a specific person, or you can round robin a ticket, or you can rotate it amongst a team, has really powerful assignment functionality. But sometimes we run into customers who actually need more complex ticket routing than what you're sort of able or want to be able to do with HubSpot out of the box. And so this will be an example for both of the ones I'm going to go through. For new tickets are created, and we'll have a workflow that gets triggered. And so this may be either a brand new ticket comes in, it could be a ticket hits a certain status. So maybe you have an escalation process in HubSpot, and once a ticket sort of reaches a certain level of escalation or a certain SLA, you want to enroll it into this workflow, sort of different ways that you might manage and route these. But in case sort of round robin or something specific is a little bit challenging, Operations Hub is going to help you do that. So One example here on our next slide is out of office rep management. So we run into this all the time where perhaps I have a large call center or a large rep floor, or even a smaller one where I have 4 or 5 agents and I have ticket volume. And whenever someone is out of office, either because they have PTO, maybe they're out sick, they're just unavailable for whatever reason, we want to skip them in our routing. So default in HubSpot, what you would need to do is you could go to your workflow and you could adjust that workflow for that particular day and say, oh, Jack is out sick today, so don't distribute this to Jack. If you have a large number of agents, this gets to be really, really onerous and really complex to manage. And so Operations Hub is here to help you. So what you can do using Operations Hub is we would use a coded action and we would pull from, so if you have an HRIS system or perhaps a Google Calendar where people are adding their PTO or their sick days and sort of logging that information, we can have our coded action go and reference the HRIS system, find out who is out on PTO, who is out sick, and then round robin amongst all of the agents that are actually in office and available to be taking tickets today and right now. You could do the same thing with an integrated Google Calendar, where we've done some workarounds where someone just manages it out of HubDB because that's what they have access to. But our favorite examples of this is when we can actually connect directly to the HRIS system that manages the PTO, and we can just filter and sort based off of who is out on PTO. So really, really awesome way if you struggle with high volumes of tickets and agents are getting assigned tickets, but that person isn't available, and being able to sort of automate at scale the ability to handle who's in office and actually available to be taking tickets. And you could extend this same concept in a handful of different ways, depending on where that list of agents that are available. So think similarly to skills-based routing or different types of agents that have different certifications or skill sets. Really, really awesome ways to extend some of routing your ticket to the best agent to actually handle it. Another example using something very, very similar is capacity-based routing. So we run into lots of situations with customers where perhaps they have large volumes of tickets and the tickets take different amounts of time to actually solve. So we have a customer who sells servers and server space, and sometimes their tickets are, I need my password reset for my admin user. And sometimes their tickets are, there is a rogue SQL query running on my server and I need someone to go find that SQL query and turn it off so that it stops taking up all of our runtime. And that latter ticket might be a lot more complicated to solve and take a lot more time for an agent to actually handle. But when those tickets are coming in, maybe we have a form field or something on that ticket form that's telling us what the customer thinks the level of difficulty is. But customers tend to mark everything as urgent because all customer problems are urgent in their eyes. And so what we want to be able to do is actually route the ticket based off of how many tickets different agents have. And so the way that this works is, when a ticket enrolls in your workflow, you would hit the CRM API and you would pull all of those open tickets. You would group them by which agent it is assigned to and sort based off of who has the least number of tickets assigned. And then you would assign tickets to that agent until they become full, and then someone else shows up at the top of that sort list. You can do something really similar here if you use sizing on some of your tickets. So rather than just number of quantity, maybe you have a field that indicates, how complex of an issue is something or scored by that. And you'd be able to then say this agent either has the highest quantity of tickets, or maybe you want to set a threshold and say no agent should have more than 20 at any given time. Whatever your business logic is, you will be able to build it into that custom coded action and then be able to say only assign tickets to the agent who has the least number, has the lowest score of complexity, or perhaps has the least number of tickets for the least amount of time. So you can start powering really complex routing. And this is Operations Hub is awesome for you to be able to extend some of what you're doing and assign them to the right person. For this next example, Jack, I could speak to this one, but this one may have come from you, or I can take it.
It did actually come from me, and I'm happy. Maybe I'd love to get your thoughts as well, but to kind of maybe set the scene. This was just an interesting thing that I was working on quite recently and wanted to flag it. Service Hub, obviously, the kind of the center of the Service Hub is the conversations inbox, where you've got different avenues of communication coming in for support, whether it's email, whether it's Facebook Messenger, whether it's live chat or support forms. And what they'll do is they'll create threads in the inbox, and you can manage the back and forth. And we recently launched a suite of APIs well, it's in beta right now, but it's publicly accessible. Anyone can access it. And it allows you to interface with the conversations inbox. And what's really interesting about this is that you can actually scrape content of the thread and use it for automation. So this could take many shapes or forms. So for example, in my instance, an email would come in with some data in the body of that email, and I use some custom code to parse through the email and take that data to perform various actions within the CRM, whether it was creating or updating a contact or creating a ticket and assigning it to somebody. So I just wanted to flag that. I can pop the link into the chat just as to where the documentation is, but it opens up some really interesting ways of looking at custom coded automation in the Service Hub sphere.
Jack, to give you credence to this one as well, that this one, and when you and I talked about it, we're currently trying to add PTO in our system into creating time logs so we can manage capacity and other stuff, which happens in a whole bunch of systems outside of HubSpot. But this example is I get an email that says someone has approved PTO and it's this many hours. And theoretically, I could use this example to intake that email and then use Operations Hub to go and do stuff off of those. So maybe I want to add that and to some of my skip routing, but in our case, we want to generate a time log. And the cool part about Operations Hub is because we have access to this, and even though some of those things aren't happening inside of HubSpot itself, we would be able to use HubSpot as sort of the orchestration machine to build on all of that automation, which I think is a really cool application of this same concept.
Absolutely. And as well as that, like I'm a big advocate for, I think the more access you have to the data via the API, the better. And this was just a big win, I think, for HubSpot to release this in public beta, because it just adds more tools to the toolbox when it comes to building out bespoke processes for businesses. So yeah, lots of cool ideas that can come off of that, I hope.
Cool. Well, I'll go through another example here, and this will be auto association. So this is actually something we run into all of the time. In fact, we run into it so much that we built an app to solve this problem before Operations Hub came out, because it vexed us all of the time. I can throw the link to that app in the chat. It's called Associate. But with Operations Hub, if you have Operations Hub, you don't even need our app. You can just do this straight in Operations Hub, which is really exciting. So this example is to do ticket association. So something that we run into all of the time. So the original example, I think this one's in like our app video that we made this for, was we had a customer who was selling physical products. They had an order number. So they had a deal that was based off of that physical product and they would ship it to that customer. But when that customer came back and opened a support ticket, they would then open a order number and put, oh, here's the order that this ticket is for. And the challenge that we ran into was there was no way for us to link the ticket that got created to that deal. And so what would happen is agents would get that ticket. They would go find the order number field on that ticket. They would search HubSpot to find that order. They would link that order to the ticket. And then they would go and do a bunch of other things based off of what they found. So one example would be if they found sort of that ticket and then that ticket or the order number was outside of the return window, they would notify the customer, hey, this is actually outside of our return window. Here's what your other options were. And that was taking them a bunch of time. And so using Operations Hub, you'd be able to actually, when that ticket's created, search HubSpot for a deal using the CRM Associations API that matches that particular order number, and then link that deal and that ticket together using Operations Hub. So what that lets you do is say, automatically, let me link this deal to this ticket, and then let me use workflow logic that says, if there's a new ticket and the reason for the ticket is return, but the order date is more than 30 days ago, automatically email this customer and tell them they're outside of the return window. And now we just took that support action, which used to take somebody 10, 15 minutes to hunt down the right information, draft that email to that customer, send it, and close the ticket. And now it's fully automated. So now we can focus our agents on tickets that really need their time and ultimately deliver a better customer experience. So the way that this works is when that ticket's created, we use the CRM Associations API. This coded action runs whenever a ticket's created with an order number, and we search for that ticket. So you can extend this example. So whether you're using order numbers or that customer example I gave earlier with the server space, is they have server IDs. So which server ID are you experiencing this issue on? Maybe you go and fetch information from your system on a different object that might be in the database, or link your ticket to additional folks. Or maybe someone else needs to be associated to this ticket, and what is their information? And you can create a contact and associate them and power all of these different pieces. And so really, really awesome where objects come into HubSpot. Maybe they don't have a lot of context and your agents are spending time trying to add that context. And you can automatically do that with search and association APIs and extend the power of what your Service Hub does and ultimately remove some of the lift for your agents across the board. So I think a really cool example, looks like Jan through the Associate. That's all Associate does. Operations Hub does lots more stuff. So the cool part is we built an app for that, but you can actually build that app entirely on Operations Hub, which I think extends sort of the value of Operations Hub, which is you can build all sorts of stuff on it that typically you'd have to do with custom development outside of HubSpot. Next example from us is connections into your product. So often we find customers that are either a SaaS business, and so they have a lot of customer data about who their customers are that lives outside of HubSpot, or even if you're not a SaaS business, you might have an ERP, you might have an ordering system. Something we run into all the time is customers come to us and say, I need a really complex custom integration with my ERP or a complex custom integration with my order database. And what they actually want to be able to do is deliver one part of their customer journey with context from that other system. And so you don't need to build a big, complicated bi-directional integration. All you really need to do is make sure that in your automation powering this journey, you're able to connect to and push and pull information from the system where that data lives. So some examples for this to be able to map into is ways you could do this. So something that we do for some of our applications is we actually have HubSpot as effectively our admin panel for everything inside of our system. And so when we want to make a change to a customer record, instead of trying to navigate into the admin panel of a software tool or navigate somewhere else, we can actually just check a box or edit a field, and then we can use a custom action to then go and push that information into another system or another database. So our examples, if we go to kind of our next slide here, and these are real things that we do for our product. So we have a app subscription object inside of our HubSpot portal for all of our apps. And things that our support agents do all of the time is extending free trials. They get customer tickets that say, hey, I got your notification that my Associate trial is ending next week. And I didn't have enough time to play with this. Can you extend it for me? And what used to happen, and similar concepts for, can you cancel my subscription? I'm no longer going to use it, or I'm locked out of my admin panel. I need to reset my password. And so what we've done is we've created all of those as fields on our app subscription object. And so our support agents, when that ticket comes in, we can actually go and say, oh, okay, cool. You want to extend your trial. Let me edit the free trial expiration date to 2 weeks from now. And then let's use a coded action in HubSpot to then send that information to our backend that manages those subscriptions. We actually send that back into Stripe. We update that Stripe expiration date. And now the customer is entitled to a longer period of time that they can use that free trial. And so what this does is our agents, one, they don't have to have access to Stripe. So there's some security benefits there. Two, they don't need to context switch and try to go into Stripe, search for that customer, access that customer, and be able to make a change. And they can do all of this right from HubSpot. We also can do this with automation. So we can do things like send a customer an email and say, hey, your trial is about to expire. If you need more time, just click here. And when someone clicks that CTA, we can trigger that workflow and we can send that data back to Stripe and say, update the subscription that's associated to a customer with this email and extend that free trial period. So a lot of examples here for sort of how we set this up and what this looks like. But one of our favorite things about Operations Hub is it sort of lets you use HubSpot as that master customer system of record, and then be able to go and push and update data in other places without people having to do manual tasks. So maybe a support agent says, yep, I'll go ahead and extend your trial, but they get distracted. They don't actually go to the system and do it. And now the customer is sitting here with an expired trial and saying, someone told me this would be extended. What's going on? We can eliminate any risk for those types of experiences by automating the entirety of that overall customer experience. And so you can extend this to whether it is your application, maybe you need to go and cancel an account, cancel a shipment, anything that might have an additional system in the mix. And you can power all of that directly from HubSpot, which ultimately leads to a simpler experience for your internal teams, making you more productive and effective, as well as a better customer experience because there are no errors, everything's instantaneous, and you can extend kind of the power of Service Hub across the board. So those are kind of the examples that we pre-put together to get people thinking and thinking about some of the stuff they're trying to do. If you have questions on these particular use cases, we're happy to chat through those. Also, if you have anything you're working on, or how would I do this? How would I solve this problem? How would I build this particular experience? Throw it in the Q&A. We'd love to touch on it. We'd love to talk about it. And we'll spend sort of the rest of the time that we have here with questions that we get, talking through some of the examples that you guys might have, or some of the problems you're trying to solve with Service Hub or anything else with Operations Hub. There's one that I saw in the chat that didn't make it straight into the Q&A that I can go and touch on from Brandon Kirsch, which is, how do we define when an agent is full? So I think that this related to some of our capacity-based assignment. So the answer is sort of up to you. How do you want to define it? The example that I gave was just directly off of ticket count. So maybe we just want to assign a ticket to the agent that has the least number of tickets that are open that are currently assigned. But I could similarly do it where maybe you have a sizing field on tickets that tells you how hard or how complex is that ticket, or maybe it's the agent that has the least number of tickets that were opened the least amount of time ago. So you want to make sure that you're not sending a ticket to somebody who is working on an issue that's been open for a couple of days, or you want to score it based off level of complexity. The best part of all of this is because it's all coded, you can really build whatever you want and define that concept of full in whatever way makes the most sense for your particular business or your particular problem. Question from Jesse. So this is for the out of office rep management. Will that integrate directly with Google Calendar, or is there a service that has to run in between HubSpot and GCal? So this answer is a little nuanced, only because it'll vary dramatically based off of how you actually do it. So let's say you don't have an HRIS system, you don't have a formal PTO requesting policy or a system that stores that data, and all your reps do is add sort of a calendar event. Something we see all the time as folks manage PTO by saying, if you're going to be out of office, add the event to either your calendar or add something to the PTO shared calendar. And so in that example, you could go straight to Google Calendar and just grab who has events on that calendar and what email addresses are in Batiste. Or if you're logging, often like we use Rippling internally as our HRIS. And so Rippling actually creates events on Google Calendar. So as opposed to going to Google Calendar, we could go straight to Rippling because that's sort of where the data originally lives. And so whether you're grabbing it, but you don't need an additional service or an additional place, your reps will need to get that event either onto Google Calendar or in your PTO system for that data to exist in a way that you can access it. But the best part of Operations Hub is you don't need any middleware or service or really like a PTO integration. What you need is just an action in that workflow. So I think that you just asked clarification there, which is, will this live in the workflow with a round robin type assignment? Exactly. So basically you'd have a workflow that says, whenever a ticket's created, run this workflow. And that workflow would say, who is out of office, skip those people, route it either in a round robin fashion or maybe combined with some of those capacity-based examples that we touched on as well. Jack, is there one in the chat that I was speaking, so I didn't read any of these. If you want to take one, and then I can grab one.
Yeah. There was what I saw from Ashley, and she basically just asked, is there a way to build line items on a deal with a custom coded action based on a specific deal property? And correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley, but my kind of understanding of what you're trying to do there is you have a deal in HubSpot, and you've got, let's just say, a drop-down property, product 1, 2, and 3. Depending on what option I select as a user, something happens in the background and a line item is associated to that deal as product 1. And if that's the case, yes, that can be done. That would just be done using our line items API and our associations API. So you'd simply trigger a deal workflow when that property is updated, and then you'd use the custom coded action to find the matching line item and associate it to the deal. And it works quite well, and it avoids people having to go through the entire kind of line item setup process.
Yep, 100%. We do something really similar where we run into customers who either have lots of line items, but maybe a simple package, right? So maybe you have your premium boat rental package, and that comes with, a captain. And clearly I want to go on vacation. I don't know where this example came from. It comes to the captain and a cooler full of beers and whatever else. And you can automatically use that workflow to add all those line items to the deal, either based off of a single deal dropdown or maybe a combination of values. Something we've seen is to sort of build, we're working on kind of like a full CPQ app because we run into this problem a lot. But to build almost like a CPQ type experience where maybe you remove reps' ability to add custom line items, and then based off of the deal stage prompts that sort of say, what's the package? What are the tiers? Fill out these drop downs that are required fields on stage change. And then you could use those fields on stage change to power that workflow that then adds all the line items directly onto the deal, which sort of makes sure you always have the right blend of products for everything you might tackle. So Operations Hub is awesome for those examples where you maybe want to take a simplified input, but you want to orchestrate a whole bunch of downstream actions off of that input.
There was one other question as well from Alison, if it's okay to take that one, Connor.
Go for it.
And it was, can we route live chat conversations in the same way we can route tickets? So right now, no, you can't, in full transparency. The way typically you'd set up the conversations inbox is that you would assign users to that inbox, and then it's a round robin for these specific conversations. The tickets which are created off the back of a conversation can be routed dynamically and kind of represent the life cycle, if you will, of a support case. But to answer Alison's question specifically, despite us launching or releasing those beta APIs, there isn't a way right now to update the owner of a conversation. So we can retrieve we call them actors in the context of a conversation. We can retrieve that data, but we are unable to update ownership yet. What I would say is that this is a beta API and certainly will be built upon, and it's highly likely in the future that type of thing will be possible. But for now, it's not. And it's a great question.
The one I saw on here from an anonymous attendee is we're looking for a way to route our round robin meeting assignments based on specific form criteria, i.e. potential enterprise criteria. Any thoughts? So I think you should be able to do that example without any custom code, just using CRM Pro and workflow logic. So you should be able to say, and you may not even need CRM Pro, depending on whether you need to round robin or just assign agents. So let's say you have either a team, right? So you'd create a team in HubSpot, you'd add a bunch of users to that team, and those are your enterprise AEs. And so your enterprise AEs, you want to assign enterprise leads to. You just have a workflow that when a form is submitted, powers that workflow. It says, well, in the dropdown, what's the company size, and then route those submissions and assign a contact to whichever team or whichever person you sort of define you want to assign those to. That kind of example you should be able to do without any custom code, using the standard workflow actions, without needing Operations Hub or to custom code anything. We do that a lot for all sorts of folks that have marketing forms and sales teams, and everyone has sort of different logic. Our example is we have a form where people submit and then say, do you need app support, or are you trying to talk to our services sales team? And we route those to different folks depending on what that dropdown is. And you should be able to do that with out of the box HubSpot workflows. Another one, by the way, guys, the thank you is not stop asking questions. Please keep asking questions. We just wanted to throw up emails. If you guys want to reach out to us directly on any of these, more than happy to as well. But we'll keep taking these with everybody live. Also, there's one in here from Brandon, Jack. I don't know if you've read it, and maybe want to take it, or I can speak to it too. But
yeah, sure. So I think Brandon, so consisting talking point with service agents. So where should conversations, where should I have conversations? Just where should I live conversations?
I think live is log. Like, where should I
log? Sorry, log conversations, or outbound calling and inbound calling comes up consistently as a reason they should be on the contact record instead of conversations. If something pops up, how does operations expand the power of conversations in inbox so that the agent can genuinely just live there? Do we need to have access to the contact? Yeah, it's a good question. So, so Operations Hub will definitely enhanced the features of Service Hub when you think of it on the broader scale. But when it comes to the conversations inbox, we don't really have any way to use Operations Hub to manipulate the interface that we are presented with in the conversations inbox, or add additional functionality that otherwise would be available in the conversations inbox. Where I see for now Service or Operations Hub really helping is for any incoming or even outgoing messages from the conversations inbox, you could leverage those threads in the context of the wider CRM. I know that's not specific to your use case. I get it. Ideally, you'd have someone just living in the conversations inbox and not having to jump back and forth between a contact or a ticket or a company in the CRM. But right now, that's still kind of an aspect of what they need to do. We're obviously always going to show an overview, contact, their companies, past feedback, past tickets, and that type of thing from inside the conversations inbox. But anything else outside of that would likely warrant them having to click into the specific record.
I saw one in the chat from Nancy Britzy or Breezy, which is, can these work with our homegrown ERP CRM for email subscriptions or with our website admin for passwords? So the answer is, if those systems have the ability to either receive webhooks or they have APIs that allow for a web system to interact with them, the answer is yes. So if those tools have those, or maybe your IT team, something we see a lot for in-house ERP systems is maybe the ERP is on site and doesn't have sort of web access, but they've built, whether it's a data warehouse or some sort of server that lives on top and extracts data or receives data from that system. And so you'd be able to interact with that web system as opposed to the ERP directly. But if there are APIs, or if your system can receive webhooks and then interpret them and take actions upon receipt, you should be able to connect to HubSpot using Operations Hub, using those coded actions. And that's something we do for a lot of different clients that we work with, is that particular type of problem. So if you want to chat directly about the system you're using and what's possible, more than happy to shoot me an email. But the answer is, if it has APIs, then yes. If it doesn't, no, with an asterisk on maybe, depending on what else might be going on. We don't have anything else that I'm seeing in the Q&A. If you do have things that you want to talk about or ask, please submit them. You'll get to the top of the list. But other than that, Jan talked a bit about some upcoming ones. The next one that's happening is on CMS Hub. I actually will not be on that one, but Emily from the Aptitude 8 team, who is our CMS expert, will be on that one in my stead. So I'll miss folks that have been on consistently, but I'll see everybody at sort of the full CRM example in a month or so from now as well. Jan just threw the sign up link in the chat, so do come to the CMS one. CMS is awesome. If you are CMS curious, I honestly can't recommend it enough. The things you can do with CMS Hub are incredible, especially with tie-ins to the rest of HubSpot overall. Cool. I'm not seeing other Q&A. Thank you everybody so much for coming. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me an email if you're working on any of these projects. We're always taking on new customers. We're always hiring. If you're somebody who is involved in the HubSpot ecosystem and you're interested in these types of problems, we'd love to talk to you as well. And Jack has incredible LinkedIn content, and I highly recommend giving Jack a follow as well.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to connect with anybody who would like to. So, and lovely to speak to you all today.
Yeah, thanks everyone. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks and bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.